Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios with the 9th episode of Vigilants Season 1 and the Junko Anayo. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that last name. Don't let others decide your opinions. Now let's hop in and see what will be learned today.
When you work so hard to impress someone, to make them proud of you, it can be temporarily satisfying to get that person's approval. But what happens when the thing that impresses that person changes? Junko Innoue had spent her first 13 years proudly being the daughter she thought her father, Dai Innoue, wanted her to be. She was a straight-A student, and every opinion or stance he had soon became hers as well. The most prominent one recently being that any Biounite user who didn't make a connection with their creature partner using a bond band was putting others in danger. Junko had boldly and confidently stood by this belief, and even scolded her twin brother Akaru for becoming friends with a boy in their grade named Augie, who had a Biounite partnership naturally, with no bond band. Now, not only had her brother changed his opinion about the bond bands, but so had their father, and Junko didn't know how to handle the change. There was a time when the only people that could create a partnership with one of these superpowered creatures that roamed the island of Unitalia were those who were living as their most authentic self and put their body and mind into the same vibration as the natural world around them. Then, if they set the intention, a Biounite matching their authentic self would come find them and merge with their body to give them the same powers as the remarkable creature.
I wonder what pause would actually
since Unitalia had become more industrialized, the public opinion had been shifting to thinking that the truest, safest connections came from using a bond band, created by the Vigilants Corporation. These expensive bands, when worn, could make an artificial version of a specific frequency to attract...
You know, he keeps bringing up the price of these damn things. How much are they? Like, seriously, can we get an answer?
Attract whatever Biounite partner a person wanted, as long as that Biounite had been found and its vibration scanned and logged in Vigilants systems. Because Junko and Akaru's father had a high-ranking position in the Vigilants Corporation, he'd gotten a steep discount on the bond band subscriptions, and gotten one for each of his children when they turned 13. Junko knew exactly which Biounite she wanted to partner with, a flying flaming serpent called Ahimonyo. She'd known she wanted to bond with it specifically after seeing it on a school camping trip when she was 10. Her class had gone out to campgrounds outside the main city for a night in nature. Well, there, the kids all decided to play Manhunt, which is like tag, but each person gotten by the kid who is it then joins that team and helps catch the others. Most people tried to call not it, but Junko boldly stated she wanted to start as the hunter. Junko loved to run and had full confidence in her speed, and even plotted out which kids in her class who had superpowers she should catch first to win the game faster. They'd made a rule that...
Feels like her Biounite would actually be something more cheetah than snake.
Any kids who were in the 22.2% of people in this world that had naturally occurring superpowers couldn't use their abilities in the game, but that was pretty hard to enforce for some kids. She gave everyone 30 seconds to run, then fired off into the woods herself. Within 5 minutes of starting, she'd gotten 4 kids and was instructing them on where to go and who to hunt next.
Damn,
but all the while, she kept noticing a creature bobbing in and out of the leaves above, watching her. When the game was down to 3 kids left, one being a child with enhanced speed, she was chasing him in a full sprint while calling out instructions to her fellow hunters to cut him off. As she did this, the winged serpent that had been watching her, who she now knew as Ahimonyo, flew down beside her and moved with her through the woods. She looked into its eyes and felt a connection to it, but then tripped over a root and tumbled forwards. She rolled...
Okay, so this actually is her partner, Biounite. But she still believes it can only be a partner with the use of the damn band. Okay.
Rolled along the ground, and when she sprang back up, it was gone. She vividly remembered that moment, and when she finally got her bond band 3 years later, she eagerly set her device to that creature's vibration to attract it to her. While Junko was a fairly stoic young woman most of the time, when alone, she treated Ahimonyo like an adorable puppy. Outside her family, she'd never loved any being so much, which was part of the reason she was so scared of her father's shift in opinion on bond bands. The change had started after their school's Vigilance fighting team tryouts. Junko, Akaru, and Agi had all made it to the final rounds and assured themselves
And
places on
one
the
other
team
guy.
to represent their school in the superpowered fighting tournaments to come. But in the last round, Akaru faced Junko and wiped the floor with her, revealing that he and his Bayunite, Hopalima, were in fact bonded naturally, despite him pretending to use a bond band for most of that tournament. Junko had been furious by the defeat and by what she saw as a massive betrayal to their father. She watched and waited afterwards for Dai to ground Akaru until he was 40, but instead, their father just started asking Akaru and his irksome friend Agi question after question about how they'd both made their natural connections with Bayunites. A few days later, Dai even went with the boys out for a walk in the woods to learn more. She hoped he'd come back reassured that Agi was trouble and Akaru should stop hanging out with him. But Dai, Akaru, and Hopalima returned from the outing, and her father even had the faintest glimpse of a smile on his usually stern face. He'd clearly enjoyed the event, and his mind was even more turned against bond bands. Junko's mind started to spiral. What if her dad made her get rid of her bond band? What would happen to Ahimonyo? When Akaru had first gotten his bond band before he'd become friends with Agi, he'd used it to partner with a Bayunite called Mahuta, and it had tried to attack him after he took his bond band off. Then, it flew away and he never saw it again. He had later made a connection with his current Bayunite, Hopalima, but that didn't make Junko feel any better.
Junko, one thing you gotta remember is that you technically made a bond with this serpent back when you were 10 years old. It literally looked you in the eye, you felt the connection, but then just nothing happened because you kind of tripped. If you had stopped and looked at it, you probably could have bonded with it right then and there. But then 3 years passed.
Couldn't stand the idea of Ahimonyo leaving her, let alone attacking her. Some nights she even slept with the wide-eyed serpent creature coiled around her. It made her feel safe and happy. Over the next few weeks, Ahimonyo was the only thing that comforted her, as her father spent more and more time with Akaru and Agi. He even started talking openly about how, "That Agama boy is much more mature and intelligent than I first gave him credit for." Even at school, opinions about Agi were shifting. Before the Vigilants tryouts, everyone had thought Agi was nuts for having a natural bond with a Bayunite. But now plenty of kids were acting like he and Akaru were celebrities. They were even encouraging kids who couldn't afford the extremely expensive bond bands to go out and try to make natural bonds with Bayunites themselves. There were still many that hated their stance on Bayunite bonds, though. The Vigilance team coach Pak, for example, who was much harder on Akaru and Agi than the rest of the team, as they all trained for their first Junior Vigilance Intertalia tournament. He'd even give Junko ideas on how she could beat either Agi or Akaru in practice fights. But even still, she rarely got an upper hand against either of them. She'd lost to Agi 5 times in that first month of training, and every time, her blood would boil as he'd finish the fight by saying, "You could get a real Bayunite bond too. Just gotta take that band off and I'll show you." She was determined not to be brainwashed by him, and was more and more livid every day seeing her father falling under his spell. One day, Junko was home alone after her father and Akaru had gone out to the...
She really is very Azula-coded. The dad is definitely not Sojin-coded. Yeah, it's Sojin. It's been a while since I've pronounced the name.
...the woods with Agi again.
You know who I'm talking about?
She heard a familiar ring of Dai's work phone, and saw the name on it was her dad's boss, Choyo Makaide. She knew her father would be upset if she answered it, but she thought, maybe, if his boss knew that her dad was supporting non-bond band Bayunite partnerships, Mr. Makaide could talk some sense into him. She picked up the phone and told Mr. Makaide that this was Dai's daughter. She explained where Dai was and what he was doing, and told Mr. Makaide that her dad needed someone to remind him why bond bands were the proper way to make Bayunite connections.
Oh no.
Asked Mr. Makaide to not say that she'd told him anything, as she didn't want to get in trouble for answering her dad's phone. Choyo thanked her for the information and promised to be discreet. Unfortunately, his promise meant little. The very next day, Dai stormed into their home after work. "Junko, what did you do?" Seeing her father angrily approaching, Ahimonyo wrapped itself around Junko's waist and placed its head on her shoulder, watching him intently. "I didn't do anything." He stopped and stared down at her, making her heart feel like a pummeled punching bag. "Do not lie to me, Junko. Mr. Makaide told me you spoke to him. Do you understand how much trouble you've put me in? I've been demoted, and frankly, the only reason my employment was not terminated was because I'm one of the few people who knows about some of the Everett Corporation's more covert projects. Someone who works directly in development and production of bond bans cannot be seen encouraging the abandonment of them. Why did you answer my phone, and why did you tell him anything? As Dai was scolding her, Augie and Akaru walked in and quickly sensed the tension. Junko was breathing heavily, but was at least somewhat comforted by Ahimonyo. "This isn't my fault, it's his," she said, pointing at Augie. "Just stop listening to him and your boss will stop being mad at you. I don't understand why you're letting him trick you." "Young Agama is not tricking anyone, Junko. He helped your brother get a genuine connection with a Bayou Knight, and he may be able to do the same for others." "But you always said that was wrong," she yelled on the brink of tears. "You said it was bad to not use bond bans. You said people like Agama were dangerous, and their Bayou Knights would attack people."
This would be the point he was like, I was just repeating what that damn company told me. Yeah, I didn't have any kind of proof in it. Of course we wouldn't. We're not native to the island. We're Japanese. Are they Japanese? Yes, they came from Japan, and when the twins were about 3, I believe.
Augie chimed in his overly cheery voice.
Stepping the hell back.
But now he knows he was wrong. Junko yelled, "Shut up! You're the one who's tricking my dad into thinking wrong, and I bet—" "Junko, stop!" Dai interrupted. "He is right. I was wrong."
Bum, bum, bum.
She just panted angrily. She'd never heard her dad say anything remotely close to that before. Dai calmed down and knelt to be closer to Junko's level. "I had hoped this would not be something you'd learn until perhaps you were in your 30s or 40s, but I suppose you should know now. Just because I am your father does not mean I am always right. As a parent, I often feel the need to act as though I know everything because I must teach you and your brother how to become upstanding members of society. But I don't know everything, and I never will. Learning new information and growing as a result are constants in life, not simply something you do as a child." He glanced back at Augie and Akaru. "I've observed your brother and Agama's connections to their Bayou Knights, listened to how they achieved their bonds, and even run scans on theirs and their partners' vibrations. They truly have the best connections to their creatures I've ever seen, and it has made me re-evaluate my work. Though I was not ready to approach the subject with my colleagues. I do now believe that the Everett Corporation has misled people, and that, while bond bans can be useful, they are not necessary."
If anything, the bond ban shouldn't be used to completely replace the frequency, but should be used more like a crutch. Like someone puts it on and they use it to refine their own frequency, to be retuned with nature. Well, of course, eventually turning it off, and using the newly refound frequency to form a proper connection. And so, use it as a crutch, not an entire replacement.
And may not even forge the best kind of connection. Junko put her hand on her band. "Well, I'm still keeping mine. I'm not going to risk losing Ahimonyo." Dai's shoulders sunk. "Unfortunately, you do not have a choice now. Being demoted means I no longer have the discount that allowed me to afford the bands. At the end of the month, I must return yours and your brother's to the corporation." Junko wrapped her arms around Ahimonyo. No, I'll fly away with it. You can't take it." The serpent rubbed its head affectionately against Junko, clearly seeing how distressed she was and trying to comfort her. "I'm sorry, but..."
Junko, did you forget that those things are literally connected to the Everett Corporation? They can just turn it off remotely because they made it subscription-based?
"That won't matter. Once the subscription for the month is up, even if I have not returned the band, Everett will shut it down remotely.
Exactly!
There's nothing we can do." Augie chimed in again. "Actually, you might be wrong there, too." Dai glanced back at him. "Don't get too comfortable saying such things to me, boy. I am still your elder."
Sorry, sir.
Augie nodded but walked closer to Junko, who stepped back and sneered upon his approach. "Junko, do you really feel that connected to your Bayou Knight?" "Yes, I love him like he's family, and I'm not going to lose him because of you." Augie turned back to Akaru. Do you remember how you felt about your bond with your first Bayou Knight, Mahuta? The one that left after you took off your bond band? Akaru walked over.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, it just felt wrong. It was like I was bonded with a total stranger. Augie nodded and turned back to Junko. Right, because Mahuta was completely the wrong Bayou Knight for you. It didn't match your true self like Hapalima does. But there is a slight chance that if Junko really does feel this
Quick question, is it Hapalima or Kapalima, like cobblestone?
connected to Ahimonyo, that it could actually be the right Bayou Knight for you. If you learn to connect to it properly, you might even be able to keep it after you return your bond band. I can help you with that, like I did Akaru. She sneered again. I don't need your help. Augie grinned. Okay, then turn off your bond band and see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
You're gonna have to eventually, right? Junko looked down at her band, then at Ahimonyo. Dai then said, Perhaps we should not attempt this in the house.
Oh, God,
She pressed a few buttons on the band, saying, Fine, I will. I bet because I used a bond band first, my connection with my Bayou Knight is better than yours. Akaru probably just didn't use his right. She hit the final button and the light on it went blank. Akaru quickly merged with Hapalima and got ready, just in case the serpent attacked.
Did anyone step outside?
Ahimonyo loosened its wrap around Junko and pulled its head back, looking at her confused. It leapt off her and flew in the air next to her, staring at her. Her heart pounded. It's still me, Ahimonyo. It didn't attack her, but it started to back away. Then it started flying around looking for an exit. In a panic, Junko turned the band on again. Ahimonyo whipped its head back towards her, then flew back over to wrap itself around her once more. Junko hugged her ally, then angrily looked over at Augie. Fine, show me what to do, but this better work. Junko started
Okay, first up, let's step outside, then turn the band off, and yes, he will fly off. You're probably going to be without a partner for up to a month, maybe a little more, until we get your authentic self out.
Joining her father and brother on their trips into the woods with Augie. Dai was also trying to make himself able to bond with a Bayou Knight, but it was a slow process for him. Augie said that this was to be expected. You've just got to be more patient than us. Old people's brains can adjust to new ideas too, just not as quickly as kids. Dai took some offense to being called an old person, but also acknowledged that Augie was right. Augie also asked Junko plenty of questions, trying to get her to figure out what the most authentic version of herself was. She answered them grudgingly, not wanting him to know her, but one of the most useful things was telling him about her first interaction with Ahimonyo when she was 10 on that camping trip. Augie said that it likely felt drawn to her then because she was being her most authentic self in that moment. Not only was she enjoying herself out in nature, but she was being a leader to the other kids and was fully confident in her ability to outrun and outmaneuver other kids.
True.
That pairing of movement, confidence, and leadership may be the key. After learning that information, Augie let Junko lead them all on their nature walks. She didn't like that Augie was the one granting her the leadership role, but she took it and brought them into many parts of the woods they hadn't explored before. She'd even grudgingly ask Augie for input when it seemed like they were getting lost, knowing that he knew these woods better than her. All that time, she had kept her bond band on to make sure Ahimonyo didn't leave, but when the end of the month approached, she started getting scared that her days with the Bayou Knight may be numbered. Augie told her that if Ahimonyo was meant to stay with her, he would. She'd rolled her eyes when he'd said it, but tried to focus on the fact that she did truly feel like Ahimonyo was meant to be her Bayou Knight partner. She even started to notice how much she did enjoy the outings and leading the group on the nature walks, despite never saying it out loud to Augie, who she still thought was too cheery and cocky for his own good. Finally, a day before Dai had to return the bond bands, they all went out to the woods for Junko to remove it and see if Ahimonyo would stay. Her father was there with them and said, Remember, Junko, what is meant to be, will be. Despite the nerve spinning of vortex in her stomach, Junko said, I'm not scared. She looked at Ahimonyo and cupped its face in her hands. The idea that the adorable sky snake was about to leave her forever made her want to burst into tears. But before she could, she said, You're gonna chase me again, Ahimonyo. She took off running into the woods, and the serpent followed after, along with the others close behind. She ran and ran, seeing her ally flying on happily beside her. Still scared and still running, she pressed the buttons on her band and turned it off. Ahimonyo suddenly fell back. Junko kept sprinting, panting and exhausted, but not wanting to look back for fear that Ahimonyo had left. She kept the image in her mind of her ally flying up beside her again. The next minute felt like it extended into eternity, with Junko running completely alone. But finally, Ahimonyo soared up beside her again, flew right into her, and merged with Junko's body. Happy tears poured out of her eyes as she spread a pair of wings and flew up off the ground, breaking through the leaves above into the sky.
There you go!
She could feel Ahimonyo in her mind, and it did seem a bit more confused than usual, but he had stayed with her. He was her true Bi-Unite partner, bond band or none. After a few minutes up in the air, she flew back down to rejoin the others. As soon as she landed, her father gave her an uncharacteristically huge hug and said, "I am so proud of you, Junko. You clearly learn much faster than I do." What felt so strange was...
This is literally the Zuko family if they were kind to each other and proper. Oh my god, I love it!
For the first time, Junko hadn't been acting the way she did with the specific purpose of impressing her father. And yet, this was one of the most affectionate reactions he'd ever given her. She lovingly hugged him back. And as she did, glanced over at Augie, who was looking very smug, at least to Junko, with his hands on his head. When she finally stepped away from her father, she marched over to him and held out her hand. "Thank you, Agama." He grinned widely and clapped his hand into hers and unexpectedly replied by saying, "I bet you and me are gonna get married one day."
Whoa!
She pulled her hand back. "Ew, as if, weirdo." Dai raised an eyebrow at the boy. "That is a very strange thing to say, Agama. But you could do a lot worse, Junko."
Oh!
Akira cackled at his sister's outraged response. She tore off her bond band, tossed it to her dad, then flew off again into the sky. Unhappy that she had to admit Augie had been right, but ecstatic that now she knew she could keep Ahimonyo with her forever.
Oh, this story is so damn wonderful. I mean, it's just multiple different separate stories set in the same universe. But all in all, I love it, and I am so sad I wasn't here in the beginning.
I hope you enjoyed this 9th episode of Vigilants, and know that if you haven't heard the other episodes...
Okay, everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.